In September of 2008, the collapse of Lehman Brothers, a U.S. investment firm, triggered the acceleration of a credit crunch that started to unfold 1 year prior that nearly collapsed the global financial markets. The global financial crisis of 2007 and 2008 was the worst recession since the Great Depression that started in 1929, nearly 80 years prior. It was a perfect storm of low interest rates, predatory lending practices, and a lack of proper control mechanisms by central banks and regulators to prevent the collapse happening in the first place. Retail investors around the world bore the brunt of this near collapse, losing their personal savings, retirement nest egg, and even their homes. And although Canada was not impacted as much as the United States, Canadian investors still lost billions of dollars in a matter of months. And it has taken years for investors to recover their wealth. The global financial crisis was a catalyst for regulatory reform to implement new rules and regulations to better safeguard against a systemic collapse of the financial markets by ensuring financial institutions maintain appropriate levels of capital to absorb losses in future economic downturns. It was also a catalyst to ensure that retail investors are adequately protected in other ways, from unscrupulous advisors, unsuitable investments, to provide investors with clear and sufficient information, and to provide transparency and full disclosure of potential, perceived, and material conflicts of interest. As it turns out, the Ontario Securities Commission, the OSC, had already been working on introducing such rules in 2004 when it published a concept paper, the Fair Dealing Model, a regulatory framework for dealing with clients based on 3 core principles: advisors and clients clearly defining their responsibilities to each other, ensuring all dealings with retail investors are transparent, and properly managing conflicts of interest. Following the global financial crisis of 2007 and 2008, securities regulators recognized the need to put new rules in place to protect investors. In 2012, the Canadian Securities Administrators, CSA, published a consultation paper to explore the idea of introducing a statutory best interest standard for Canadian investment dealer firms and their advisors when working with their clients. This would essentially make dealers and advisors obligated and accountable for operating in the client's best interest. In many ways, this makes sense, since advisors should absolutely operate in the client's best interest. However, there was industry pushback to introduce a statutory best interest standard, fearing it might create unintended consequences for the advisor and dealer firm, particularly where the court of law might interpret it as a fiduciary duty to a client, a duty of trust to act for the benefit of the client. And not to make things more complicated than necessary, but Canada's common law already has a fiduciary duty placed on certain advisors depending on their registration category and the specific nature of the relationship with their client and the degree to which that client relies on the advisor for advice. In the end, the statutory best interest standard was not implemented, but the key principles were. Regulators targeted several key principles of the best interest standard, including conflicts of interest, know your client, know your product, suitability, relationship disclosure, and created targeted reforms to enhance the regulatory framework in the best interest of the client, otherwise referred to as client-focused reforms.